Kia ora, my name is Cathi Barker and I'm from Software Solutions, and I'm taking you through a series of videos that revolve around functions charting and more in Excel. This goes with my level 2 course. So what I'd like to do is show you a whole lot of functions, and I've put them into different categories. So I'm going to start with statistical functions, the most commonly used statistical functions out there. And how do I know that? That's because of the phone calls and the emails and the support sessions I have with people, questions people are constantly asking me. That tells me what functions are most useful to people. So I'm going to go to this sheet called Statistical in the file that accompanies your course notes. I'm going to hold the control key and just zoom on in so you can see clearly what I'm up to. First thing I want to do is start with the most common function of all, which is the sum function. Now with Excel, there's a variety of ways that you can insert functions. I only believe in teaching the best way, the way that I think is going to be the most useful to you, rather than confuse you with every single different way that you can do it. And I would argue the best way to put a function in is to type or press the equals key and then the first letter of what the function begins with, because there's a lot of functions in Excel. I'm starting with the cell B11, so I'll just give that a click, and I'm going to press equals and the letter S. As soon as I press equals S, I get all the functions in Excel that begin with S, and what I want is the sum function. So I'll then press U to drill down to those functions beginning with SU. If I click on it once, I can read that this adds up all the numbers in a range of cells. And I think, well, that's what I'm after. So I then double click the function. So I just type enough letters to trigger and to see what I want. Once I see it, I double click it. The less interference from me, the less chance of error. The next thing it now wants is, where are the numbers that you're wanting to sum? Well, now I'm just going to select with my mouse this range here, B3 to B9. So even though there's nothing in B9, I still select B3 to B9 because we may acquire a figure for Steve later on down the track, and when I enter that figure for Steve in B9, I want it to be included in my sum. At this point, many people press close bracket. I know Excel will do it for me, so I don't bother doing it. I just press enter. The sum is 326. Now, if I wanted to double check that, of course, I could just select these cells and look down here on my status bar, and it tells me the sum of the selected cells is 326. That verifies that I've got the correct answer. Now, as far as filling this result to the right so it works out the sum for April, May, June and July, I can just drag this thin black cross to the right and it will calculate the sum for each and every month. But if you know how to do that, I want to give you something new. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z, which is undo. I'm going to hold the Shift key and press the right arrow because I want to select those cells to the right until I reach column F. Then I want to fill to the right, so I press Ctrl R. Ctrl R is fill to the right, Ctrl D is fill down. So there are shortcut keys when you want to fill to the right or fill to the down instead of just using the thin black cross. If I want to look at my answers, of course I've got my Show Formulas button on my Quick Access toolbar from an earlier video, or I could go to Formulas in the ribbon and I could choose the Show Formulas button. This immediately shows me all the formulas, and I can see as I click on each one that it's summing the correct range of cells. And I can turn off the Show Formulas. Okay, second function, average. Average begins with equals AV, equals AV. That drills down to the 5 functions that begin with AV, and I double click average. I then select the cells that I want to average, B3 to B9, and I press enter. I then sit on 65.2, hold the Shift key and press the right arrow, and then press Ctrl R, and it fills it to the right. Next thing I want to do is count how many numbers have been entered for each month. So I'm wanting to count the numbers. And that's your count function. In B13, equals COU drills down to all those functions beginning with COU, which is a lot. And there I can see the count function, and this function counts the number of cells in a range that contain numbers. So it's not going to count text and it's not going to count blanks. It's only going to count numbers. So it's very specific. So I double click count and then I select the range that I want to count. And when I press enter, it says that 5 numbers have been entered for March. And then I'm just going to fill that to the right. So what if we have a situation where we want to count what's been entered in cells and they're not numbers? Maybe they're vehicle registration plates. Maybe I have a vehicle fleet and I want to count the registration plates. Those registration plates will have letters in them, so they're not numbers. Or maybe you've got an asset register and you're wanting to count all the serial numbers, and a lot of those serial numbers are going to have hyphens in them, they're going to have letters in them. So technically they're not numbers either. If you ever need to count a range of cells and you want to count all the ones that are not empty, then you're going to have to use not the count function, but the count A function, which I think is more powerful than the count function. The count A function, as the A implies, counts all. Sitting in B14 equals COU. There's your count function. There's your count A function. The count function only counts numbers. The count A function counts all the cells that are not empty. The count blank function counts all the cells that are empty. So you've got all your bases covered. I'm going to double click count A and I want to count these names. Now I know our list is small, but imagine the list was large and imagine the list was changing on a regular basis. So you're not going to just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You actually want it to count because the list is huge and it's going to undergo change. We're just going through the motions. Okay, so there's a function called count and there's a function called count A. Now what if I want to find the largest value for each month? Well, that's a function called max, short for maximum, equals M. When I click on max, it says this returns the largest value in a set of values. So I'm like, yep, that's what I'm after. So I double click max. I then highlight the cells, and when I press enter, the largest value for March is 85. Now below that, I want to know the smallest value or the minimum. So that's a function called min, equals M, and here we have min, and it says returns the smallest number in a set of values. So I double click min, highlight the cells, and press enter. Now I've straight away got my largest and my smallest, my variance for that particular month. If I select 85 down to 45 and across to the right, just using my shift down and right arrows, I can go Control R and fill those both to the right. Or I could use my mouse, whichever you're more comfortable with. Now the last function I want to use in this sheet in B17 is to look at the entire yellow area and tell me what was the most common or the most repetitive value overall. And that's a function called mode, M-O-D-E, equals M-O-D. And there is mode. Returns the most frequently occurring or repetitive value in a range of data. So I double click mode. Now I select the entire yellow area. I could leave out the headings if I wanted to. It's not going to hurt. But I've basically chosen B2 to F9. If I then press enter, it says the most popular number is 65. So if you're wanting to know the highest number or the most repetitive, not the highest number, the most repetitive or the most common value, it's 65. And if there wasn't one, it would say NA. It would say not available because there was a tie between the two. I hope you've enjoyed that collection of statistical functions. Please come back for the next video. The next video is looking at a logical function. The most common logical function of all is an if function and the power that that provides you. Please like or subscribe so I know whether I'm doing well or not. And I hope I see you soon. Take care. Ka kite.